This campaign was disappointing. Mostly because The Last Stand doesn't even feel like a campaign to me. It feels more like a big, glorified survival map, because half of it is survival. I guess it makes sense. It's called The Last Stand after all. But if I wanted to play survival, I'd play survival. Not this weird hybrid they've got going on here. I think this campaign is alright. It's fine, but I also think that this is the weakest campaign when compared to all the others. There aren't any memorable moments. There is nothing in this map that makes it stand out from the other campaigns. You could easily remove this map and no value would be lost from the game. Even Coldstream has at least a moment, like the part where a tank launches a huge boulder down at the survivors as the screen shakes. That was a cool moment that none of the other campaigns really have, and I feel like The Last Stand is missing a moment such as this. No! Just something cool. The only moment I can think of in The Last Stand is this plane. You can actually hear it crash in the distance when it goes down. Later on in the level, you'll find the crash site. It's cool, I guess, but players can easily miss this detail. If the plane was shown going overhead during the event with the crane, it would have been much better because you discover the crash site right after that event ends. There are also almost no changes to how this campaign looks compared to the other Left 4 Dead 1 maps. It especially looks very similar to Death Toll. Yes, I know this campaign is connected to that map, but I don't think anybody would have complained if this map had more distinct and unique locations. It would have been neat if the campaign started at sunset and ended during the night, giving it more of a last stand feel. You're holding out for so long that the sun has gone down. What a missed opportunity. This campaign just has a lack of identity. There's nothing in this map that the other maps don't have. But wait, there is one thing. The music. The Horde music now has been slightly altered. There's also a metal remix of the tank theme at the end of the campaign, which is neat. It's just music. It's not much, but I'll take what I can get. Okay, I gotta talk about the length of this campaign. It's way too short. Not that being short is inherently a bad thing, but it is a bad thing when half the map is the finale. This whole map, on average, is 20 minutes, and the finale is half of that. That leaves me with 10 minutes worth of content to talk about. I'm not against short maps, but there comes a point where it won't even feel like you're playing a campaign anymore, especially with this finale being this long. The map is so short that once you beat it, you'll probably not feel anything because it's over before you know it. You know what, let me give you a quick rundown on what you go through in this campaign. You spawn near a truck and make your way through the forest. Going underneath this road, you enter a house. Then back into the forest, following a trail until you reach a building. After that, you enter the junkyard and do the event. Once that's done, you follow this path until you reach the crash site of the plane you saw earlier. Going down this waterfall, you can explore these houses and then go across this bridge, entering the safe house. After exiting, you follow a path until you reach a tower with a radio inside. Moving along, you reach the lighthouse. And that's it. That's the whole campaign.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
Just why is it so short, man? So devoid of content. You hold out until the boat comes, you pour some gas cans into a generator, some tanks try to throw rocks at you, and then it's over. Fun fact, despite The Last Stand being the shortest campaign, it actually is one of the longest to speedrun. Why? Because this map has padding. By adding a pointless scavenge section and a junkyard event that overstays its welcome. In fact, the finale itself overstays its welcome. No other map has this issue. As Sonic the Hedgehog says, that's no good. The campaign may be short, but I'm not gonna pretend that the content you go through is bad. I think it's solid. And there is some visual storytelling here, but there's just not enough of it. If this campaign had a third chapter, it still would have been short, but I think it would be acceptable, because half a campaign shouldn't be survival, even if it is based on The Last Stand. A campaign should be a campaign. Survival should be survival. That's how it's always been. To be fair, the level design in this campaign is good. It's fairly balanced and it's well paced. I never played a versus match in this campaign, but I definitely think it's infected favored. Infected can actually spawn inside of a few bushes, which opens up more opportunities for attack. Nothing stands out in this campaign like a sore thumb. There are 4 tanks in the finale, but you'll be prepared for it. The map is challenging, but fair. The crane event in chapter 1 is incredibly difficult, especially if you're playing by yourself. But the map gives you tier 2 weapons, grenades, and healing. You may have also gotten a bottle jar earlier in the level, so I think it's a fair challenge to overcome. The finale itself I don't really have that big of an issue with, but what I don't understand is why we need to play scavenge in the middle of this finale. It's so unnecessary, and to me it's always been a big interruption. I think the finale would have been better off without it, and its addition honestly just feels like padding to me. It didn't make the finale any better, and it didn't make it more challenging either, so what's the point? But besides that, I think the level design and map design is good. The map accommodates both versus and expert realism, which means it's accessible, and that's a good thing. The level design is definitely the best part of the whole campaign. This campaign came out in a weird time, a time where we were expecting a content update. The last map that came out for Left 4 Dead 2 was Coldstream, and that was in 2011 before it was completed in 2012. This campaign was coming out on the 10-year anniversary of Left 4 Dead 2, so the expectations were naturally high. We had gone almost 8 years without a new campaign, so you could imagine my disappointment when I realized it was only 2 chapters long. My disappointment was even greater when I realized just how short the second chapter was. I wasn't expecting a masterpiece, but I was expecting something more than what we got. And this isn't really the developers' fault. The developers likely wanted to just make a short but fun campaign. And I'd say they did a good job. But at the end of the day, this campaign was highly anticipated. I mean, there were teasers, animations. The trailer itself really highlighted the Last Stand campaign too, making it seem like it was a big part of the update, when in reality, it was actually a small part. The campaign was forgettable. It's not that I hate this map, I just think it's lackluster. It took no risks, it didn't do anything special, it just simply didn't do enough. So the map obviously didn't reach my expectations, but the map came out the way it did, so I'm reviewing it the way it is. But when you compare it to every other campaign, I think it falls short. This is probably not going to do anything, but I don't like bashing on maps without offering what I would have done to improve them. So here we go. Okay, first of all, I would buff the melee weapons it came out with until they are at least viable. The shovel and pitchfork are guaranteed to spawn in chapter 1, so it would be nice if they were actually useful. The shovel is okay, but the pitchfork, ugh, god.
What were they thinking?
I'd make the map more interesting by adding more set pieces, events, and maybe even changing the time of day. I definitely would have made a 3rd chapter to give this campaign more meat, or at least balance out the holding out compared to actually going through a level. I would take this plane that flies overhead and move it to the junkyard event to give this campaign a more memorable set piece. Rather than having the gas can event begin in the middle of the finale, I would have it start the finale instead. Honestly, I'd rather just... But if we had to keep it to make the finale more climactic, that is what I would do. The Last Stand, for whatever reason, doesn't really have much graffiti, which is in every other map. I think adding a bit more would help with lore and storytelling. In fact, there's barely any story in The Last Stand. That's another missed opportunity. If the map did all of these things, it would have been better. Maybe even better than Crash Course or Coldstream. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And now, it probably never will. Maybe I'm being too harsh and unfair. This campaign wasn't made by Valve, it was made by the community. But even then, I still think they could have done better. I've played custom maps that are better than this. The Last Stand campaign is a 6 out of 10. A 6 isn't bad, it's just alright. However, when you compare it to every other campaign, it falls at the bottom. I think every Left 4 Dead campaign is over a 7 out of 10, with the exception being Crash Course and Coldstream, which I also think are both a 6. But I think I would prefer playing those maps because at least they feel more like campaigns than The Last Stand does. They also don't pad out time. So I think that this is the worst campaign on the list. I wish it wasn't, because I was really hyped for this map when it was coming out. Coldstream came out when I was 9 years old.
You disappoint me, Garrosh.
Again, I don't think this map is bad. If I toss aside my personal expectations and judge the map for what it is, it's more positive. But the map still suffers from issues such as the length, the finale being half the map, the lack of an identity, and finally, the map just being overall underwhelming and boring to play. The Last Stand campaign was not bad, not good, but disappointing.